All right, good afternoon, wherever you're watching us from. Welcome to Uctv Sports Link. Today is a Friday. Of course, a lot has been happening and a lot is going to be happening over this weekend when it regards to sports. Of course, so many events have been happening, and that's why we're going to be looking at. Of course, this weekend, we're not going to be having this English Premier League. Maybe we shall be having the La Liga, and also there is the Italian Serie A, but mostly in England. We shall be having the FA Cup, that is commonly known as the Carabao Cup. That's where basically we're going to be having over the weekend. Then we shall also be having, of course, the Copa del Rey. We shall be having the Italian Serie A. I've already told you about that. Then the Copa de France will also be there. Paris Saint-Germain will be in action. And of course, a lot of other leagues will be in action, but notably those league cups are the ones that are going to be playing over the weekend. Here, locally in the country, the StarTimes Uganda Premier League resumed, and over the weekend, we're going to be having a couple of games that will be played. Most of your teams are going to be in action starting today, where we're going to be having 2 games that are going to be played. But of course, after that, even on Saturday, on Sunday, we shall be having various games that will be played over that side. Yesterday, our national team that will be representing us in the Vitality Netball Nations Cup series that normally happens in England was named. So we're going to be looking into that squad of ladies that are going to be representing us. Maybe, of course, we were supposed to be having Mr. Ray, but we shall be having him at least next week, sorry. And I will be able to talk about the year of 2023 when it comes to motorsport and what is happening in 2024. Other sports, like I told you, that normally have their sporting calendars in a year, not like this one of football. I have 2023, 2021 that normally have them just run into 1 year, like the likes of rugby, the likes of golf. They have started, of course, posting their events that will be happening. That is in this calendar year of 2024. So basically, that's what we're going to be looking at. Not forgetting, like I've told you, a lot of events are going to be happening this very month. Of course, also the weekend. Most sportsmen are trying to figure out how this is going to be. And of course, we'll be giving you more that will be coming in. That is from that side. Starting off from here locally, like I told you, our national team for the She Cranes, yesterday, of course, they have been in training. They have been in a couple of training drills, both at the MTN Indoor Arena, that is in Lugogo, and also the arena that is in Kamocha, where they could normally, where they have been normally been in training. So this team that is under Coach Mugerwa, who recently, like I told you, got a contract. He has been the coach of the national team for a couple of years, but of course he did not have any single account. Of course, he did not have any single contract. That is, of course, with the netball national team. But at least recently, he was given that contract, and of course, currently he's the coach of the national team with a contract, not by mutual understanding as it was before. But of course, like I told you yesterday, after the training drills, he was able to mention a squad of girls that are going to be representing Uganda in the Vitality Nations Cup. This Vitality Nations Cup is hosted by England, and of course it's played by a couple of big nations when it comes to netball. And of course, some of those big nations already know. The likes of South Africa will be taking part in this. The likes of England itself, the likes of New Zealand, all these big countries will be taking part. That is, of course, in this prestigious tournament that is going to be happening soon. We all know our national team, of course, was under wrangles recently between the First Lady, let me say like that, of Uganda, the National Council of Sports, of course, taking on Sarah Babide Chito, who was the president of this federation, but of course after some time he was told to step out and currently is not in office, so they had to put in a committee that will be running this federation for some time. So, but of course, like I've told you, the squad has 13 ladies that will be led by their captain, that is Irene Yalu, but it will also be boosted by professional players in Mary Nuba and also Hanisha Muhammad Nakate, who are currently in UK, that is of course in England, where they play their professional football. But of course, England-based Peace Proscovia will deputize Mugerwa, thus boosting Uganda Shell technical bench. So remember, he's not as of now playing. That is Peace Proscovia, so who will be helping out Mugerwa. That is, of course, on the bench to see that the girl put something very good. That is to the national team. Of course, this squad, it has Lilian Ochora, Florence Aduni, Mase Batamuliza. It has Hanisha Muhammad Nakate. We're having, of course, Mary Noba. We're having Farida Kadondi, Sandra Ruth Nambirige, Christine Nachito, Christine Namulumba Kago. We're having, of course, Shadia Nasanga Seguja, Sarah Nachiyunga, Margaret Bagala, and of course the assistant coach Irene Yalu. Those are the players that were named, of course, on this squad that are going to be representing Uganda in this series. They are going to be played, of course, in Wembley. That is the Oval Arena that is in Wembley. This is where these games are going to be. And of course, the first games will be played on 20th of January. That's when we shall be having the first games. And the opening game will be against, of course, Australia, taking on New Zealand. But of course, in that same group, Uganda will be taking on the hosts. That is, of course, England. And that game will be played at 8 p.m. in the evening. So that's how, of course, things will be. And it will be a Saturday, by the way. So those that will be lucky, you'll be able to watch these games. On Sunday, we shall be having, of course, Uganda again will be in action. That is on 21st, taking on New Zealand. Then after that, of course, they will be taking on Australia. So that's how the groups will be. Of course, after those groups, if Uganda, of course, we shall be having teams that will be directly going, that is, of course, to the knockout stages. So let's play that our girls do it, and they do qualify to the knockout stages in these tournaments. In this tournament, that is the Vitality Nations Cup that is going to be happening in England. But of course, we do expect over this weekend, the team is going to be flying out. We do expect them, of course, to fly out as soon as possible. Of course, they have not yet told us the dates as when this team is going to be flying out, but we expect them to be flying out as soon as possible to have proper preparations for these games that are going to be happening that side. Like I've told you, they missed out. Remember the Africa Cup of Nations for the netball. The team was able to miss out due to the wrangles that were going on in the federation. But we do expect that after something was settled, we do expect them at least to put up a good showcase. That is, of course, in this tournament, and we'll be giving you more that will be coming in from that side. Away from that, in the Star Times Uganda Premier League over this weekend, we're going to be having a couple of games that are going to be played. That is, of course, in our Star Times Uganda Premier League this weekend. Various games are going to be played, of course, that side. And like I told you, one of the teams, of course, Vipers will be in action. The likes of Cases are going to be in action. So various teams are going to be in action over this weekend. That is, of course, in the Star Times Uganda Premier League. Today, one of the games that we're having, Bright Stars, of course, is going to be in action. Like I told you, if you do remember, earlier on, by the way, their first games, of course, the games that they had recently, things were not very well for them. But the first game today, Maroons is going to be taking on UPDF. If you do remember, Maroons, of course, in their last games, things were not very well for them. They had, of course, a good run of almost six games. Of course, when they don't have any single loss, but their last game against Bright Stars, that is Maroons, it wasn't very good for them, and they lost that game 1-0, a game that was played, of course, at Kavumba Stadium. But of course, their opponents that they are going to be hosting, that is UPDF Football Club. Their performance, of course, is very bad. They don't have any single win in the last 7 games, losing 4 in the last 5, only having, of course, a draw. So this is going to be very difficult for UPDF Football Club, at least gaining a point from Maroons. Of course, apart from that loss that Maroon had in the last game, things were not very bad for them. That is, of course, when it comes to the Star Times Uganda Premier League. So this game that is going to be played at Luzira, Maximum Prison Stadium, you do expect them at least to be having an upper hand going into this game. So let's wait and see how things are going to be happening. That is, of course, for Maroons Football Club. Then Chitala is going to be hosting Bright Stars Football Club, a game that is going to be played in Masindi. Stadium, that is of course in Masindi. Chitala, they have not been, fluent when it comes to winning games. Things have not been happening well for them. So taking on a Bright Stars side that was also not as such, of course, so competitive in their previous game. But of course, coming into this game, Bright Stars, like I've told you, they were able to beat Maroons, a side that has been very, very hard for most of the other teams that they've been taking on. But of course, you do expect them at least to come into this game very charged. Chitala, at home, I think things have not been very bad for them. Their last loss at home, I think, is the only game. If you remember that first game at home that they lost against Maroons Football Club, I think it's the only loss that they have at home. They have not drawn, by the way, any single game, if you do remember. That is when it comes to home. So they have been having a good performance. They have been having, of course, a good performance in most of the games that they have been playing, that is at home in Masindi. But the problem has been coming in most of these games that they have been playing away. So this time around, of course, coming into this game against of course, a Bright Stars club or a Bright Stars side, you do expect that at least Brian Senyondo will be able to head his charges to see that at least they get the all 3 important points in this game that they are going to be hosting. That is at home in Masindi, in this game that is going to play today in the Star Times Uganda Premier League. So it's also another game that is going to play today. That is, of course, Chitala, like I've told you. So we do anticipate that if things don't go the other side, we should see, or we may see, that is, of course, Chitala Football Club taking on this win. That is Nelson Senkatuka, one of the top scorers that is at Bright Stars Football Club. If you do remember the start of the season, he was very hot, scoring goals for fun. But as of now, I don't know what is happening, of course, in his camp, because as of now, things are not going well as he expected, because we're not seeing any goals so far. I think in the last 2 games, things have not been very easy for him. That is, of course, Nelson Senkatuka. So let's wait and see how things are going to be happening for him. That is, of course, in the next games when Bright Stars. You never know, even this very game, he may be a changed man coming into this game, at least trying to score goals for his club, that is Bright Stars, to see that at least things don't go very bad for them going into this game against the Chitala side. Of course, Chitala was one of those clubs, like I told you, that was expected at least maybe to be very competitive this season due to the fact that, of course, they have everything that a team could think of. One, they have the fan base. One, that is, of course, very instrumental to Ugandan football. They have the fan base. Then again, at least they have the little that can help them run the club and also play off the players. Because one thing in Uganda that is disturbing most of the clubs is that, of course, sometimes payment comes late, and this so much affects the performance of the players. But of course, this is not something that you may expect at Chitala Football Club. And of course, so do you expect them at least to be putting up a good performance? So let's wait and see the game that is going to be played tomorrow, whether they will be having, of course, that capacity to see that they get the 3 important points from this game that they're going to be playing tomorrow. The NEC Football Club tomorrow, on a Saturday, they will be taking on Arua Hill. Arua Hill in Luganda, you can say yafuka chimpe nche kubire, because whichever team that comes across Arua Hill, of course, it's a sure win. Last game, of course, that they played recently, if you do remember, it was a win. It was a loss against Express Football Club. Express that have just recently got their new head coach. That is, of course, Alex Isabire. Yes, we would expect that, yes, it will be a win for Express. But again, a fight for Arua Hill was not seen anywhere this very game that they were able to play. They have been having, of course, a couple of big issues. If you do remember, last season, by the way, not so far away, last season, the 2022-2023 season, this Arua Hill that we're talking about concluded, of course, in the top flight league. As 6th, of course, they were number 6 in the top flight league, meaning that they were very competitive last season. But of course, you do remember at the start of the season where we saw things of sharing of sharing ownership of this club. This is where most of the problems started from, and of course, the club has not done anything. That is, of course, of course, the team has not, of course, done anything. That is when it comes to how things have been happening. I don't remember them winning any single game. If you do remember, They have been, of course, losing games, 4 consecutive games as of now, because their last point, they got it against, of course, they got it against Wakiso Giants. That was the last point that they were able to get. But, of course, the last 3 points that they got were against UPDF, if you do remember. That is in November last year. That's when they got their first 3 points of the season, and still, even there, still, of course, on those 3 points. By the way, if you count those 3 points, then the point they got against Express Football Club, against KCC Football Club, at the times when KCC, of course, was still struggling, then that point that they got against Wakiso Giants. So those are the only points, of course, that they're currently having. Those are the 5 points that they have, of course, so far in the 14 games that they have played. But, of course, in the other all games, that is, of course, 11 games, they have managed not to even to collect a single point. So that's the Alua Hills that we're going to be, that we're talking about as of now. NEC going into this game, currently, of course, in 7th position. So far, in the 14 points that they have, in the 14 games that they have played, they have been able to collect 21 points. That is, of course, NEC Football Club. So you do expect them at least going into this game. Again, by the way, they're going to be at home. That is at the StarTimes Stadium. That is, of course, the MTN Omondi Stadium here in Kampala. This is where this game is going to be. So you do expect them at least to come and have some say in this game. NEC, they have also been having a poor run, because in the last 4 previous games, they have only managed to collect 2 points. Those are the 2 draws and, of course, 2 losses. Their last loss coming against Vipers Football Club, that game that you're seeing on your screen, losing 4-1. So that's how things have been happening for them. I think their last win was against URA, if you do remember, here at StarTimes Stadium, at the MTN Omondi Stadium in Rugogo. So let's wait and see whether tomorrow they will be able to bounce back and have, of course, some say. That is, of course, in this game. Bull, the leaders of the StarTimes Uganda Premier League table, who were recently beaten, if you do remember, by Gaddafi Football Club over the weekend. That is tomorrow. They will be taking on Mbarara City. Mbarara City side that, of course, they are coming into this game after their win against Wakiso Giants that they were able to get at home. That is Kateka. So they come at least with that boost going into this game. So let's wait and see how things are happening. By the way, for Bull, they have to win this game at least to keep their chances of at least having that gap. Because if they had won that game against Gaddafi, they will be having 35 points, meaning that their margin will be to 6 points between them and the second place Vipers Football Club. But of course, if you just have 5 points ahead of Vipers, it's not sure, or you're not sure whether they will be whether you'll be taking the trophy. So that's the difficulty that Bull Football Club is having. So they have to win that game over the weekend. That is, of course, against Mbarara City. Then we shall be seeing Express taking on Gaddafi. Alexis Abide's Chargers have so far won 3 games in a row. Of course, they had 2 losses, if you do remember. Those losses against Chitala, that is, of course, Andes Villa. But ever since those games, they have been winning games for fun. So you do expect them, being at home, by the way, in this weekend game, taking on Gaddafi, you expect Alexis Abide to come, of course, a strong man. We all know where Alexis Abide comes from. That is, of course, the Soga region. So they are going to be taking on a Gaddafi that is coming fresh from winning that game against Bull FC, the table leaders. So you do expect that Alexis Abide's Chargers will come very prepared to see that at least they take those 3 points in these games that, of course, they will be played. Then on Sunday, ex-Villa will be visiting URA. It's one of the games that will be played. Then we shall be having Vipers taking on Musoga United. It's also another game that we played on Sunday. But the last game of Saturday, Wakiso Giants will be hosting KCCA Football Club. KCCA is also another club. Ever since Abdallah Muru, was able to take over this team, they have had 4 games in a row. Of course, they have won 4 games in a row, and these have even boosted them from the top zone where they were. Of course, currently they're in the top 10, in the 9th position with 19 points. Not so far away, of course, from the top leaders. That is, of course, Bull Football Club. So you do expect also KCC to come back stronger and do something that is well for them. So that's how the StarTimes Uganda Premier League is going to be over this weekend. So we'll be giving you more information that will be coming in from this side. But of course, not forgetting, the Ladies League is also going to be coming back. Yesterday, we had, of course, a game that was played. That is, of course, on the side of the ladies, where we saw Kampala Queens was beaten recently by Kawempe Muslim. So these games are going to be resuming tomorrow. So a couple of games will be played over that side. And also, of course, on Sunday, we'll be seeing various games that will be played over that side. So that's how the weekend is going to be when it comes to the Ugandan football. That side. We're going to be going into a short break. After the break, of course, I'm going to be coming back. A lot is happening, of course, outside Uganda. So we're going to be looking into that going into this weekend. All right, welcome back from that commercial break. You're still watching Uctv Sports Link with me, Ssemugenze, Mustafa. Like I told you, by the way, we're going to be having the Australian Open when it comes to tennis. So the lovers of tennis over in the coming weekends. Of course, in the coming weeks, sorry, you'll be very, very busy, entertained in Australia, where we're going to be having the Australian Open. Currently, most of the stars are trying to prepare for this tournament, so they're having these mini tournaments that are happening in Australia before that Grand Slam that is going to be happening over that side. So mostly these ATP tours that they are currently in, or these Opens that they're having, these prepare them for the final thing. That is, of course, that will be starting around the 13th of January. That's when, of course, this one will be starting. So we'll be giving you more that will be happening in from that side. That is, of course, when it comes to the world of tennis. Yesterday, again, we had some games that we played, of course, in football. I think we're going to be starting with the Coppa Italia, where we had, of course, Juventus was in action. I was the last team that was in action. That is, of course, at this round of the Coppa Italia. That was played, that is, of course, yesterday in Italy. Juventus was at home taking on Salernitana. Of course, it was the team that Juventus was taking on. That is at Turin, but Juventus was able to beat this team, that is by 6 goals to only 1. By the way, they even came from behind because Salernitana got their first goal, that is in the first minutes. In the first minute of the game, coming in from a gentleman by the names of Uctv. But of course, after just 11 minutes, Juventus were able to come back and they claimed their glory in this game. Juventus will play Frosinone, who eliminated Napoli in the quarterfinals of the Italian Cup. That is, of course, in this very cup that I'm talking about. Chukwuemeka Ekwemesi, like I've told you, gave Salernitana of course the lead, who are bottom of Serie A, of course, in the first lead. But after, of course, poor defending, they succumbed to 6 goals. That is, of course, after that. Fabio Miletti leveled 11 minutes later before Andre Cambiaso fired the host Juventus, of course, ahead. And Daniel Rugani made it 3-1. The likes of Dylan Brown scored, of course, a non-goal before fantastic strikes from Kenan Yadili and Timothy Weah turned it, of course, into a riot. That is for Juventus, as they were able to win this game. Like I've told you, Juve, of course, after this round, they will be hosting Frosinone, who eliminated Napoli in the last 8 of the Coppa Italia, while Fiorentina face Bologna. Lazio will meet city rivals, that is Roma. And of course, AC Milan will be welcoming Atalanta. That is, of course, in the next round. According to the head coach, that is Massimiliano Allegri, he said that, of course, after conceding that goal, they, of course, something that they had to do, or that his player did that was very good, was, of course, to quickly, that is, of course, react, and of course, they were able to bounce back going into that game, and at least it was something that is very good for them going into, of course, this game. Like I've told you, after this one, that is, of course, so they are waiting. That is, of course, for the second round. That is, of course, where they are going to be facing off with these other teams. That is, of course, coming into the next round, like I've told you. And for Juventus, after this 6-1, so this means that, of course, they will be taking on Frosinone. And this game will be happening on the 11th of January. Firstly, we shall be having, of course, Fiorentina taking on Bologna. That is on the 9th of January. Of course, if you try to look on your calendar, that is, of course, the 9th will be next weekend. Sorry, it will be on Tuesday. That is next week. So that's when, of course, we shall be having the first game between Fiorentina and Bologna. Then on Wednesday, we shall be having Lazio taking on Roma. Wednesday on 10th, then AS Roma will be taking on Atalanta on that very day. Then on Thursday, the 11th of January, we shall be having, of course, Juventus taking on Frosinone. So that's how things are going to be. That is, of course, when it comes to the Italian. That is, of course, when it comes to the Coppa Italia tournament that is currently happening that side. By the way, Juventus was in action, that is yesterday, in the Coppa Italia, but this does not remove the fact that even over the weekend they will be in action. They will be in action, of course, over the weekend. That is, of course, in the Italian. That is, of course, in the Italian Serie A. They will again be in action over the weekend. That is, of course, in the league. So over the weekend, the same team that they faced yesterday, that is, of course, in the League Cup, is the same team that they will be facing off. That is on Sunday in the league. That is, of course, Salernitana. It will be the same team that they will be facing off the Stadio Alecci in Salerno. That is the home of Salernitana. That's where, of course, Juventus will be visiting this team. But, of course, like I told you, Juventus is one of those teams that has changed. It's not, of course, it's coming to the other Juventus of the Cristiano Ronaldos, if you do remember. The Juventus that was winning, of course, games per game and also winning trophies. So they are trying at least to see that they come back, of course, in that very shape. The last time that I saw Juventus, of course, losing a game, I don't even remember, by the way, the last time that Juventus lost a game. I think it was against Sassuolo. That is, of course, that was around September last year. But they have, ever since that, they have 14 games, of course, in a row, not losing any consecutive, not losing any single game. That is, of course, in all those games, and only having 3 draws, of course, in those 14 games, meaning that they have been able to win, that is 11 games in those games. So against, of course, the Salernitana side that is currently, of course, performing very badly in the league. They are lying, of course, in the 20th position in the Serie A. I don't think whether we shall be having, of course, wonders. Remember, Juventus is currently in second position. That is, of course, just 2 points below the table leaders, that is Inter Milan. So you do expect them at least to have that fight coming, of course, into this game. I think the only absentee that they're having in their squad, that is, of course, Alexandro is the only player that is missing. We're having, of course, Alexandro, then Paul Pogba is still out with injury, Michael Keane, who was recently at Everton Football Club, then the likes of Descogliario and also Fabio Fognol. The only players that are currently, of course, absent. That is, of course, with this side, with the Juventus side. But we do expect them, at least the coach, to field in those stable players that will be available in this game. Then over the weekend, again, we shall be seeing Empoli. That is a game that is going to be played tomorrow. Empoli will be taking on AC Milan. That is, of course, at the Estadio Carlos Santinari. It's another game that will be played, of course, tomorrow. Remember, AC Milan, of course, they can win the title, but I think their major aim is to see that at least they go into the UEFA Champions League places. If you try to look at currently the table standing, they are 9 points, of course, far away from the top leaders, that is Inter Milan. So the chase, as of now, mostly, it is between Inter Milan and Juventus. So currently, AC Milan in third position. So they are trying at least to chase. They are trying, of course, to chase. That is, of course, Juventus are trying to chase, that is Inter Milan. But for AC Milan, I think what they have to do is at least to see that they fight for those UEFA Champions League places. That is, of course, in this season. So over the weekend, like I've told you, they will be taking on, that is, of course, Empoli. Empoli has also been struggling because they are second from bottom. That is, of course, so far in the 18 games that they've played, only managed to collect only 13 points. So that's how things are happening for them. That is, of course, Empoli. So let's wait and see. But, of course, the table leaders, Inter Milan, they will also be in action over the weekend, taking on Verona. This game is going to be played, of course, tomorrow. Inter Milan will be taking on Verona. Of course, we all know how Inter Milan, of course, has been performing. They are the table leaders. Of course, they are trying at least to take that trophy that was taken away from them. That is, of course, by Inter Milan. Because you remember, before Napoli won the last season, the other time round, it was Inter Milan that were able, of course, to take this trophy. So they're trying at least to see that this time round, they also do the same thing. Of course, their run has not been as such good previously, but I think in Serie A specifically, they've been doing some great job. Their last game is against Genoa. Yes, it was a 1-1 draw away from home, but at least at home, they've been able to win all the games that they've played there. So you do expect them at least to put up a good fight. That is, of course, in this very game that they're going to be playing. That is, of course, tomorrow. So let's wait and see how things are going to be happening. That is, of course, for this club. Then away from that, in England, yesterday we had a game. That is, of course, in the FA Cup. The only game that we had, Crystal Palace yesterday was playing, of course, against against Everton Football Club. But of course, something that happened in this game, we saw the Everton boss, that is Sean Dyche. He was able to say that, of course, the video assistant referee, of course, those pitch side monitor, he said that, of course, I think they are trying to test his patience to see on which level, of course, his patience is, because he didn't expect, of course, a lot of things happened. That is, of course, in this game that he did not expect maybe to happen, but it's something, of course, that happened. That is, of course, that side, and he was not happy. That is, of course, with them in this very game that they played. Of course, his striker, that is Calvert-Lewin, got a red card just 7 minutes. I think there were 11 minutes to the end of the game. This is where, of course, Calvert-Lewin was sent off, and of course, it was a controversial sent off. That is, of course, from the referee, and Everton were beaten, of course, they ended this game with only 10 men. But of course, Calvert-Lewin, like I've told you, was shown a straight red card in the, of course, just 11 minutes to the end of the game. On-field referee Chris Kavanga had been advised to review the incident. That is, of course, on the pitch side monitor after interventions, of course, from the video assistant referees. That is Michael Salisbury. Of course, like I've told you, Calvert-Lewin, now without a goal, of course, in 12 matches, had, of course, one of the few clear chances, but could only shoot, of course, 10 men. That is at goalkeeper. That is Dean Anderson, the goalkeeper of Crystal Palace. So things did not happen. That is, of course, well for them going, of course, into that game. But players like Ebelechi Eze, of course, nearly won it for the hosts. That is Crystal Palace in the 8 minutes of the game. But of course, also his chances were cleared wide. And of course, not even having something, of course, in this game. But of course, like I've told you, Armando Nana, remember, also headed over when well placed. But of course, neither side could score while going into this game that, of course, that was played. Meaning that the fact that, of course, this game did not end with any single team winning, it means that, of course, again, they will be having a replay at Goodson Park later, of course, this month. There are, of course, a date that is not yet decided, but they will be having, of course, another game played later this month. Crystal Palace and Everton, of course, Crystal Palace is lying 11th, and Everton is lying 17th, of course, in the league, in the Premier League, with both in 4 round draws, of course, which shall take place. That is, of course, on Monday. That's when, of course, these ones will be taking place. Of course, so let's wait and see how things will be happening. That is, of course, that side. So that's how this game went on. That is, of course, yesterday. So we're just waiting to see this very month. This game, of course, will be played again, and we're likely to see how things will be going. That is, of course, in this very league. That is, of course, the FA League. So meaning that, like I told you, this weekend we're not going to be having, of course, the Premier League. So basically, we're going to be having, of course, we shall be having this league. That is, of course, the FA League. And as I told you, FA Cup. Sorry, as I told you, most of the teams, of course, will be in action. That is, of course, over this weekend. Going into this league. One of the teams, of course, Tottenham Hotspur, is going to be taking on Burnley, another side that is in the Premier League. But of course, Burnley, like we all know, things have not been very easy for them. Currently, of course, in relegation, in the 19th place, by the way, just one place shy of that is Sheffield United, who are currently first from down. So meaning that Burnley are second from down so far, managing only to collect 11 points with 20 from the 20 games, meaning that, of course, the bosses of Burnley have been so patient, of course, and lenient with their head coach, that is Vincent Kompany, who was able to get them from championship. But of course, we're just waiting to see how things will be happening. That is, of course, for this team, because things as of now, they are not as well good for the club. That is, of course, that is a Burnley Football Club, and you don't expect them, by the way, to be looking like that when the team is going back into championship. So let's wait and see, of course, how things are going. But of course, in this game, like I've told you, it will be Tottenham Hotspurs that will be at home. It will be Tottenham Hotspurs, of course, that will be at home. That is, of course, the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. This is where they will be. So we do anticipate that it's going to be a very good game. If you do remember, Burnley suffered a 3-0 defeat, of course, on their travels in their last matches against Everton. That is, of course, in the league. So we don't know how this one is going to be for them going into this game, of course, against Tottenham Hotspur side. So let's wait and see how things are going to be happening. That is, of course, in the league. We're going to go into a short break. After the break, of course, we're going to be looking into the other games. The best game or the biggest games that we're going to be having over the weekend is going to be Arsenal taking on Liverpool. So we're going to go in short break. After the break, of course, we'll come back and talk about that game and also the remaining games of the weekend. All right, at Riverside Stadium in Middlesbrough, Michael Carrick, who is currently the head coach of Middlesbrough Football Club, will be taking on Aston Villa, a side that we all know that has been very hot. A side that, of course, that has been very hot to most of the other clubs. Of course, Aston Villa, we all know, of course, what that is the head coach Unai Emery has done at this club, because he has transformed it into a fearless club that is, of course, in England, not only in England, even on the continent, because they are doing quite well. That is, of course, in the Europa Conference League. But, of course, he's going to be taking on Michael Carrick's Chargers, who are not as performing, of course, that well when it comes to the championship, because this is where Middlesbrough is. But, of course, when he was asked about this very game, he said that, of course, they will approach it like any other game. That is, of course, Michael Carrick saying that at least he expects his boys to put up a good display going into this game. Because we go into this game when currently Middlesbrough, of course, in the championship that is currently having 24 points, they are lying 12th. That is, of course, in the standings. In the 26 games that they have played, they have only managed to collect, that is, of course, 36 points. That is, of course, that is Middlesbrough Football Club, and they have 2 losses in the previous 5 games, managing to win 3, only losing 2. Of course, Aston Villa has been a well-performing team in the Premier League, and this is one of the reasons as to why they are currently in the top 4, though they have been, of course, missing out in one way or the other. If you do remember, that game against Manchester City, of course, they lost 3-2. I think it's the only loss that they have in their last 5 games. That is, of course, Aston Villa Football Club, of course, managing to win 2, and, of course, managing to win 2, having 2 draws and only 1 single loss. That is, of course, in their previous games. And, of course, currently, they are lying second in the English Premier League, just 3 points away of table, just 3 points, of course, below table leaders, Liverpool Football Club. So that's the Aston Villa that we're talking about. Of course, they are coming into this game also knowing that, of course, after this game against Middlesbrough, they will be having a very hard fight against Everton Football Club at Johnson Park. It will be there next game, of course, after this one, and it will be there. That is, of course, next week, in the middle of next week. So that's how things are going to be for Aston Villa Football Club, who will be away over this weekend. Then Manchester City will be taking on Huddersfield Town. The good thing is that, of course, Man City will be at home. That is, of course, at Etihad Stadium, meaning that to the people that do normally try out their chances, this time around, the odds will be very down in this game. Remember, Man City have not even lost a single game, winning 4 out of the 5. The only draw they have in their previous 5 games is against Crystal Palace. But, of course, they are going to be facing a Huddersfield side that just only managed 1 single win in the 5 previous games that they've played. That is, of course, in the championship. And currently, they're even, by the way, just 1 place away from relegation. They are the last team. Of course, if the league stops from here, of course, they are the last teams to be not to be relegated, because of course currently they have 25 points. The team that is last in the relegation, that is of course in this league, is having 21 points. So this shows the closeness of them being relegated if things don't work out well. That is of course for them. But I'm afraid, like I've told you, this game is going to be played of course at the Etihad Stadium. This is where it's going to be played, and of course it's going to be played that is tomorrow. So that's how things are going to be. That is of course in this league. Then the biggest game of this stage in the third round will be Arsenal taking on Liverpool. Of course, Arsenal is going to be at home. That is, of course, at the Emirates Stadium. This is where they are going to be. But, of course, we all know Arsenal has not been on form. They have been performing very bad. That is, of course, in their previous games. They have even just managed one single win in their 5 previous games. Of course, losing 2 and also having 2 games. Coming into this game against Liverpool Football Club, they come after that loss against Fulham Football Club, if you do remember, over the weekend, a game that Mikel Arteta said that it's their worst game. It is his worst game ever since he started, of course, his coaching career. He says that, of course, he has never coached a team that played badly like that. But we're just waiting to see whether he has tried, of course, to instruct his boys to see that at least things go well for them in this game that they're going to be taking on Liverpool. Liverpool, of course, have been on form, currently topping the chart. That is in the Uganda Premier League, in the English Premier League, leading, of course, with 42 points. That is, of course, with 45 points. That's so far how the team, of course, is performing well. Like I also told you, they don't have any single loss. That is, of course, in their previous games. So this shows how performing well they have been. That is, of course, also locally in the league and also on the international level. So that's how the team has been performing, and do you expect them at least to come into this game, of course, overwhelmingly, to see that they go away with the win. So this game is going to be played on Sunday. Arsenal taking on Liverpool. So that's how, of course, it will be. Tomorrow, that's when the teams will be giving us the updates of how the camp is. That is in these various 2 teams. So we'll be giving you more that will be coming in. That is, of course, from that side. That is, of course, from the side of England. But of course, in Spain, we had 2 games that were played yesterday. One of them, we saw Sevilla being beaten by Atletico Bilbao. It's one of the games that was played. But of course, we all know Sevilla, things have not been very good for them. But even Atletico Bilbao, though they were able to win this game, that is, of course, yesterday, but it's also one of the teams that has been struggling. That is when it comes to the La Liga. But of course, yesterday they were able at least to get those 2 wins. Those 2 goals, of course, having them 3 points in this game, something that was very good for them. That is, of course, Sevilla. But of course, for Barcelona, they were also able to beat Las Palmas, winning, of course, that game by 2-1. That is, of course, away from home. And we saw Ike Gundogan. He was able, of course, to score his 3rd goal, of course, of the season, because he has also not been good when it comes to scoring. Though it's not his role because he's a midfielder, but of course we've seen so many midfielders, even him at Manchester City, at least he was scoring a lot of goals, but this goal was his 3rd. That is, of course, in the season. That is, of course, Barcelona or Ike Gundogan hoping his team to come from down to win this game. Las Palmas, their substitute, that is, of course, Dale Singgreen, pushed Gundogan as the ex-Manchester City was about, of course, to nod in a cross that is, of course, on the goal line, and this earned, that is, of course, it earned them a penalty, and Ssemugenze, by the way, got a red card just towards the end of the just towards the end of the game. This is where, of course, this guy got the red card, but of course, Gundogan was able to convert this penalty into a goal. But that got their first goal from Ferran Torres just 10 minutes into the second half. That's when, of course, this team got their goal, and things were very easy. That is, of course, for them. That is Barcelona going into this game. So over the weekend, they will be having, of course, a couple of games will be played. That is, of course, that side. In the Copa del Rey, they will be having, of course, some games that will be played, but of course, they will also be having games. That is, of course, they will also be having games. That is, of course, in the La Liga. That's where, of course, they will be having most of the other games when it comes. That is, of course, to that side. That is, of course, to that side in Spain. But of course, in Copa del Rey, the same Barcelona that played yesterday on Sunday, they will be against Babastro. is the team that they will be taking on. But of course, Barbastro will be at home, meaning that Barcelona will be away from home in the Copa del Rey in one of the games that they will be playing over that side. Then Lugo will be taking on Atletico Madrid. These are third-tier teams in Spain. So Lugo will be taking on Atletico de Madrid. So Atletico will be away from home. This is going to be the third round in the Copa del Rey. Then we shall be having, of course, Aladina. They will be taking on Real Madrid. It's also another game that will be played that side. Then currently, the table leaders, the joint table leaders, Girone will be taking on Elche. Girone will be away from home. But I think this is going to be maybe one of the big games because Elche, they are currently, of course, not as such bad. Yes, currently they are in the second top flight league, the championship of Spain. That's where they're playing their football from. But we do expect them at least to put up a good challenge against Girona's side that has been, of course, winning games for fun. And even currently, they are the joint table leaders with Elche, with Real Madrid. That is, of course, in the league. So that's how the weekend is going to be in the various season. Even Paris Saint-Germain is going to be in action over the weekend. They will be having, of course, the Copa de France. These games are going to be played, by the way, tomorrow. That's when, of course, most of the games are going to be played in Copa de France. So PSG will also be in action. To the people that do try out their chances, you can look for that game. Of course, that side. Then the likes of Newcastle in England, they'll also be in action. So most of the teams are going to be in action, but notably that is in the FA Cup, in the Copa de France, then in the Copa del Rey, that is in Spain. So that's where normally, or basically, these teams are going to be competing. So you can try out and see how these teams are going to be performing. That is over the weekend. So that's how things are going to be. Of course, on Monday, we'll be here. We'll be looking into most of these games that would have been played over the weekend. But like I told you, we're going to be having games over the weekend. That is in our local league. So let's try and go. Let's go and try support these boys. The Women League is coming back over the weekend. Tomorrow, various games will be played. On Sunday, again, other games will be played. So let's go and support the girls and also, of course, the boys that will be playing over the weekend. So that's how things are going to be. Otherwise, for now, I'm going to be wishing you a good evening and, of course, also a lovely and nice weekend.